good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So, this video is going to be a hard-hitting video. I often say that, a lot of the advice we share on here starts where others end. At least a lot of the advice we hear on YouTube when it comes to spirituality and manifesting and the law of assumption. A lot of the stuff I try to share on here, a lot of the SP coaching that my friend Marvin Daniels and I do starts where a lot of that other advice and a lot of those other coaches essentially end. And what I want to talk about today is how stark a reality that is. And how it's really important to recognize that if you feel like you need to do self-concept work, especially in regards to romantic relationships, it is probably not going to be a short process where you just affirm or visualize a few times or for a few days or a few weeks or just meet with a coach once or twice and then voila, my romantic life is forever more perfect. That, common sense would tell us, is not how it actually works. And it's common sense to know that. But the thing is, in this law of assumption space, as well as the law of attraction space in general, and especially when it comes to relationships, common sense is thrown out the window. So people can, creators can make a quick buck by saying they can solve your relationship issues you've had since probably childhood in a session or two, or in a $100,000, $300,000 course, whatever it may be. And I have no problem with people selling $1,000 or $10,000 courses on the subject, by the way, as long as they're good. The problem is most of them, from what I've seen, are not that good. But a lot of people selling quick fixes, and a lot of those people meaning well, by the way, but just not having the knowledge or the emotional intelligence to understand that their quick fix is not going to work for most people. And secondly, you've got people who eat this stuff up, who buy this stuff or watch the videos or go on Reddit reading about SP success stories to keep their hope levels up and basically want to be inspired. And it's, again, fine to be inspired. Just in the same way it's fine to have, courses on this stuff or, get one or two sessions from coaches about this SP stuff. But a lot of people are just looking to get inspired and not do the work that is required to do alongside that inspiration to actually change sustainably your self-concept and SP issues forevermore. If you take a step or four back, you'll see that the SP advice you hear on YouTube, generally speaking, and I'm not saying this is every creator or every coach, I'm just saying it's most of them, is incredibly short-sighted. It's just not enough, is what it comes down to. It's not enough. At least for most of you. You need more. You need better relationship advice. The reason that Marvin and I teamed up is to provide that. And that is not one or two sessions or a few affirmations or some technique. That's doing the work. And doing the work means looking at yourself honestly and your self-concept and what you are assuming, your default assumptions, your default state, how you feel predominantly as you go through the day, how you feel predominantly when it comes to romantic relationships. And that is where all of this SP advice on YouTube and elsewhere, law of assumption oriented, falls short most of the time for most of you. And there will probably be some commenters on here saying, oh, you're being negative. These are limiting beliefs. And the truth is, they're not. I'm just telling you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. I'm actually more optimistic about your relationship options than probably most of these coaches. I just know that what's going to resolve your relationship issues is not a couple of affirmations in all likelihood, or 1 or 2 coaching sessions, or just doing a few techniques for a few weeks or a few months. You need more than that. You have to actually turn the mirror within and look at all the ugly stuff that comes up, all the fear, all the shame, all the trauma, and learn to love yourself with that stuff being there, and look at that stuff and start to figure out what it actually means for you and how it can help you as opposed to hinder you, and how you can change your relationship with yourself so you actually genuinely love yourself more, and then you can have that love reflected back in the 3D. That's what Marvin and I help people with. And if you want a free consultation, by the way, there's a link below in the description. You can fill out the questionnaire form, and we will schedule a free consultation with you if you're serious about doing this work. But the majority of people watching SP videos do not want to do the work. They're looking for a quick fix. They're looking to be inspired without taking any action after being inspired. And that's okay up to a point, but then we have to graduate from that. Because if we do get into a new relationship or rekindle an old relationship, we then are in that relationship. And it's not about getting the other person. It's about giving love to yourself and the other person then. This is, again, common sense. Just, you don't hear it often in this space. Marv and I were speaking to someone, giving someone a free consultation the other day. And they're saying, I've worked with a couple of coaches. They've given me some techniques. And the techniques tire me out. I can't figure out what to do. All these techniques tire me out. You say, yeah. What else are you doing, right? What else have you been doing? We started talking about the self-concepts work, that if this person was to work with us, what they would be doing with us in all likelihood. Shadow work, the deeper stuff, maybe some IFS, some revising of our emotional history. So we got more in depth with this person, speaking to them, and they described the trauma they experienced as a kid, the abuse. And then they gave a really self-aware diagnosis of how this abuse that they suffered, this trauma they suffered when they were a kid and teenager, how that affected their current relationship status. And, we asked them, how long have you been aware of this? And they said, well, since I started going to therapy. I said, great, going to therapy, that's great. When did you start going to therapy? They said, August. Now it's November. So a couple months of therapy. And we were saying, your awareness of the situation is excellent. And if you keep on becoming more aware of it and then providing yourself the self-love to deal with it in the way that you've started to do through therapy, you're going to be in good shape. But they didn't seem to understand that that was what the work was about, the SP work. Maybe they will. Maybe they did, and we misinterpreted what they were saying. But they were saying how they talked a lot in therapy and realized this about themselves. But then they were wondering about law of assumption techniques. And I'm here to tell you 9 times out of 10, The law of assumption techniques mean nothing compared to having the self-awareness to see how your past trauma that was inflicted upon you affects your relationships now. That's the deep work. I know most of the techniques. I know the techniques more thoroughly a lot of the time, especially when it comes to something like affirmations and the history of affirmations and self-talk based on, my study of Emile Coué. I know it better than most of the people that give it as a technique, as what to do to handle your SP situation. Because of my, critical analysis and editing of Neville's works, in the Neville Explains the Bible series, I know more about Neville's general approach and practical philosophy than most of the quote-unquote law of assumption coaches. I know about the techniques and just, how he talked about states and assumptions and how to actually practically implement them in your lives better than most law of assumption coaches. And I'm here to tell you that stuff is great. Neville was great. So many of these law of assumption type of teachings and law of attraction teachings obviously are great. And for SP stuff, solving it long term, you got to look at the darker side of things. And that is not certain techniques that Neville talked about. And Neville knew this. Neville said, my techniques are all figurative. You have to change your assumptions about yourself. You have to change your self-conception of yourself. And the easiest way to do that, usually the fastest way, the healthiest way to do that, is by looking at what before you were afraid to look at, i.e. your trauma, i.e. where it hurts, i.e. where it makes you uncomfortable. Look at that and start to heal that. And I hope that more people in the community start to do that. And if you would like help, Marvin and I can probably help you if you're serious about doing that. And I would also say for many of you, especially if you know you have significant trauma and abuse in your background, therapy is going to be a lot more beneficial for you than these various law of attraction and law of assumption tools. Those tools are great, but therapy for a lot of you should take precedence over them. We got to get deep if we want to solve these issues. And if we get deep, we start to feel better, which is reason enough to do these things. And also, in all likelihood, we'll start to like our 3D and the external results we start getting in our personal relationships, including our romantic relationships. We'll start getting those better results as well. But even if we don't, if we just improve our self-concept so we feel more loving and better about ourselves, it's worthwhile. This is what this practical work is about. This is why I like coaching people on this topic. Why Marvin loves coaching people on this topic. He's done SP coaching for years. I'm glad he pulled me in to do it with him. It's deep, gratifying work to look at ourselves and realize, oh yeah, my trauma, my history does not need to define my future actions in the way it has in the past. That's the law of assumption. It's making newer, healthier, better, loving assumptions about yourself. So I hope you understand what I'm saying when I talk about it that way. Any questions, let me know. Until next time, enjoy.